So hi, I'm KB with Nerdophiles. How are you?
Oh, good. How are you? Look
I'm
at
doing
those
well.
lovely paintings behind you. Where do you get those?
Thank you, thank you. Somebody special gave them to me.
Oh, I hear you.
Well, what an exceptional film. Joyce kind of orchestrates this reunion between LaRon and Terrell. So what do you think is LaRon's kind of greatest fear walking into that initial meeting with Terrell?
Um, that he's not going to be forgiving.
Mm,
I think that's his greatest fear because it's been years. It was a lot of years that went by, like 15 or so, right? I think his greatest fear is that he wasn't going to be forgiven. And also, is he going to see him differently than he had previously saw him? Because LeBron is a different man now. But it took Joyce saying that over and over, but still he wasn't going to believe that
mhm.
because he remembered what he remembered. So yeah, I think that was the greatest fear of, feeling that will he accept the new me?
Mm. And it's so interesting. By the end, I do feel like Terrell accepts the new LaRon, but LaRon still doesn't get what he wants, right? He wants a new and kind of lasting relationship with Terrell. And while Terrell forgives him, he doesn't get that. Terrell is like, I forgive you and I release you. So, what do you think is kind of the biggest lesson that LaRon learns from Terrell? And how does that help LaRon maybe even just forgive himself?
Wow, that's a great question. I think without trying to give it away, but I will say this. Sometimes forgiveness is not what it may look like to you or to the other person, but you got to accept that. And I think that was the hardest thing for LeBron is finding out how to accept it because it didn't look like what he thought it was going to look like.
Mhm.
We'll say that. So yeah, I believe that that's what it is. It's like it didn't look like how he had pictured it in his mind. It didn't look like what it was in his prayer closet. You know what I mean? Because in his prayer closet, he probably saw it a whole different way. But he got to accept it because that's what true faith is truly about, accepting it.
And you know what? I think that's very true. LaRon really just has to be okay with the way things are. I
Yeah,
think sometimes in life, like we do the work and we atone for what we've done wrong, but we still don't get those outcomes that we desire. And I
right.
think that we somehow have to be okay with that. Like we still have to continue on the road of doing the work. You still see LaRon is going to be that new human that he is, just kind of without the results that he anticipated. And that's okay, like that's oftentimes okay. Um,
Well spoken.
let me just say that, I told Titus and I told Aunjanue, and I even told Andre at Sundance that, like, this film has been my favorite film of the year thus far. I mean, I have not stopped thinking about it since I saw it at Sundance. It has truly stayed with me, and I think that it always will.
Well,
So,
that touched me. I mean, now I'm smiling from cheek to cheek because I mean, for you to say that was your favorite film, wow.
yes, yes. So let me just say first, this is my favorite film of the year. Like I truly have not stopped thinking about it since I saw it at Sundance. So yes, what a lovely, lovely film with great performances. So I'll start off with kind of even in the midst of her own struggles, Joyce is still putting Terrell first, in the sense that she doesn't want to leave this world without him having, kind of fully forgiven his father and really kind of dealing with all of that hurt and pain and trauma that Laron caused them. So can you share when is the point that you feel like, Joyce really forgives Laron and how that opened up her heart to really help her son do the same?
Yeah, I think that that is the core of the film is just like critiquing this idea, questioning this idea of forgiveness, and what it actually means, and the act of it, how it actually um the return of it
Mhm.
can be damaging. And I think that I think Joyce is, she's a woman of faith, and I think that to act in her faith she has to forgive LaRon. And she wants the same thing for her son, to forgive LaRon. But, Terrell is being hurt by that, you know? And I love what I love about this film is it doesn't offer answers, it offers questions, like how should we think about this notion of forgiveness? And why is it that, Black women are sort of put in this position of constantly having to forgive, and that it is a kind of work that can be unfair and hurtful?
Yeah, you're right in the sense that like it is quite unfair. And the symbolism is not really lost on me between Joyce and Aisha either. Just as the moms that they are, and both having these really caring spirits, but also these huge responsibility in raising these two Black boys to be emotionally responsible, if that makes sense, like trying to raise them to be, kind of emotionally there as well. So I had to ask, kind of what do you think that Joyce kind of teaches Aisha about the gentleness and healing that comes with raising kind of these young Black boys?
I think with Joy, she's teaching by example.
Mhm.
She's witnessing a mother who just loves her son desperately. Um, and then I love that she loves her daughter-in-law, you know, um, and openly and generously and embraces her, loves her music. You know what I mean? Like it's just it's a beautiful canvas of generosity that happens, that we see in Joyce. Um, yeah, I think she's teaching by example by being her generous, loving self.
I love that you said that generosity, because it's true. I think that Joyce has a very generous spirit. And I think that in some ways, that is the thing that kind of allows her to be able to forgive LaRon in the way that she needs to before she, transitions. And also is kind of that open door. So whether Terrell is, accepting of that or not, it is kind of within Joyce's landscape to be this woman. She is still the woman that he's always known in terms of having that gentle and generous spirit. So,
Exactly.
listen, just thank you so much for taking the time to chat with Nerdophiles. Really appreciate it. Again, this film, you're right. I think it does allow us the space to ask more questions, but it also is just so beautifully done and it's so beautifully layered and complex and just great performances all around.
Thank you so much.
Listen, I just told Aunjanue I have not stopped thinking about this film since I saw it at Sundance. It's truly, truly a beautiful and deeply layered film.
Mhm.
Um, so can you share a little bit about the choice to showcase Terrell forgiving LaRon, but also, not allowing LaRon the space to be in Terrell's life in the way that he desires? Why was that an important part of the forgiveness journey to showcase?
Um, there is this writer and uh, uh, minister. His name is Christian A. Smith. He's also a friend of mine. Christian says forgiveness requires the renegotiation of boundaries.
Mhm.
We think about it in that way often. I think we're taught to think about forgiveness as this thing that we do at one moment. You forgive and you forget. But in the idea of forgiving and forgetting, we are telling victims, we are telling them that their suffering doesn't matter. We are telling them that it's more important that you don't be healed and you let this person go on as though it never happened. And that's not healthy. That's not safe. It's not beneficial to us. And so what Terrell is saying, the kind of forgiveness he's talking about is not one where it's like, I forgive and I forget. The forgiveness is about letting go of a burden. I'm not carrying this anymore. I can't afford to carry this anymore. I don't want my children to pick this up and carry this anymore. And you don't owe me anything anymore. I release you from that debt. I'm not carrying it and you don't need to carry it. But that does not mean I need to put myself back in an unhealthy situation. You can forgive and unfriend somebody. You can forgive and not go to their house anymore. You can forgive and recognize we cannot be in a relationship. We are toxic for one another. And so I think it's important to recognize that the kind of forgiveness that we're talking about in this film is not your prototypical forgiveness. The kind of forgiveness that we're talking about is one that leads us to a generational healing. If we're going to heal the next generation, we can't pretend like the last things that happened didn't happen. We got to talk about it.
Oh, I love the way you put that because I told Andre at Sundance that the entire film, it was like while Andre was living in the body of Terrell, he never breathes. Like you never see him on screen kind of fully breathe. He's holding everything in. He doesn't relax. His shoulders are always tense. And so I like that you said it in this way because by the end, you see a release for Terrell. You
Exactly.
see him finally able to breathe. So for you, was crafting this project like a deep sigh and a release in any way? You know, kind of how did this project really reshape your own healing and relationship with grief and forgiveness?
It completely changed how I think about forgiveness. Everything I said to you about forgiveness wasn't taught to me. What was said to you about forgiveness was as a result of making this film, which to me is a testament to the power of actually making art. I don't know how it's going to relate to everybody else, but what I'm telling you is for me, the compassion that I have for my father came through the process of sitting down and writing and asking myself questions. Why did he do what he did? If you had asked me when I was a young man, I would have told you that my father is the villain of my narrative. That is not true. My father is as much a victim of the circumstances as anybody else in the narrative. I hope when you watch the film, you didn't feel like, oh, that person's the hero and that person is the villain. Everybody had a little bit of dirt on their hands because we are all complicit in some way, and we don't heal unless we come together and actually talk about these things.
That is so true. Listen, again, it is a truly captivating film. It's been my favorite film of the year, you know, by far. And let me just end by saying, you know, the art that you gave out at the Sundance premiere was so, so beautiful. And I still have that. So thank you for that. Thank you for this
Oh,
film.
I'm
And just
glad.
thank you for taking time to chat with Nerdophiles. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Katie. Appreciate
Have a great day.
you.
Thanks.